What's up, guys? It's Eric from Rare Candy, and today we're back with another Guardians Rising deck profile. This time we're going to be taking a look at a quad Sylveon GX disruption type of deck. So this is actually kind of based on a deck idea that's been performing well over in Japan, but I've kind of taken it and tweaked it for our format since they have a much bigger card pool to work with than we do. And so just kind of see what we could come up with, but it is a deck that has been receiving a good bit of hype, so we definitely wanted to try this out. And if you do want to see how this deck looks in action, we did post a video of it as well. So let's take a look at it and see what it's all about. So it's a Sylveon deck, so we are playing 4 Eevee. This is the new Energy Evolution Eevee. This is very important to note, actually. This is definitely the one we want to be using. But whenever you attach a basic energy to Eevee, search your deck for an evolution of the same type. So that means if we get to attach a basic fairy energy, we can just search our deck and evolve right into Sylveon GX. So Sylveon GX is going to be kind of like what this deck is all about. 200 hit points, and it's on a stage 1, so definitely a pretty bulky Pokemon. But we're mainly looking at for the Magical Ribbon attack. We'll get to the other attacks, but this is going to be the main one that's going to make the deck work. So for just 1 fairy energy, you get to search your deck for 3 cards and put them into your hand. So not only is the effect of this attack just very strong, you get to search your deck for any 3 cards, put them into your hand, but if you go second, you can actually attach a fairy to your Eevee, evolve into Sylveon, and use Magical Ribbon right on your first turn of the game to get going. So that's kind of like what makes this deck as good as it is. And even if, you might be thinking, well, what if your opponent ends you? Well, even still, it does disrupt you a little bit, but you still get your hand refreshed. So the attack itself is just so strong. But then it still has a couple of other attacks that we're going to be looking at as well. Fairy Wind for a Fairy and Double Carlos is 110. That's going to be actually our least used attack of this entire deck. We're not going to be trying to take prizes in this. We're going to be going more for a disruption type of idea. But its GX move we actually might use. So for a Fairy and Double Carlos, you get to put 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon and all cards attached to them back into your opponent's hand. And you might think, well, what's so good about that? Well, one thing they might do is they might have a bunch of attackers on the board to maybe potentially deal with your Sylveon. You can Lysandre something, maybe like a Hoopa, or something they really don't want in the active spot, and then return those cards and all of the energy and everything attached to them back into their hand. And especially if they're going to be evolutions or something like maybe a big Yveltal that has a bunch of energy, they can't really easily play those types of cards back down and start attacking. It's going to take them a couple turns to really get set up again, and that's going to allow you to kind of go nuts with maybe some of your disruption cards. So definitely a well-timed Pre-GX can win you a game, but most of the time we're going to be using the Magical Ribbon attack to search our deck for our disruption cards. And that's actually going to be it for the entire Pokemon line. I was not kidding when I said quad Sylveon, or well, triple Sylveon, I guess, but quad Eevee at least. But yeah, that's going to be the only Pokemon in the entire deck. Moving on to the supporters, we have 3N. So each player shuffles their hand in their deck and draws equal to the amount of prize cards they have left. This is great for us because we are not going to be taking prizes, so it's a guaranteed draw 6 for basically the entire game. And Sycamore is not that great in a deck like this just because all of our disruption cards are very precious. We really don't want to get rid of them. So next up for our supporters, we have 2 Lysandre. Switch your opponent's bench Pokemon with your opponent's active. So, we can put stuff in the active spot to stall them. We can also use this to do like those cool Pre-GX moves I was just talking about. So it's mainly going to be a stall type of card. We're not really Lysandring stuff to take knockouts in this deck, though we do have the option to. Next up, 1 Hex Maniac. So shuts off abilities until the end of your opponent's next turn. Vileplume is going to be a huge problem for this deck, and we really need Hex Maniac in order to be able to deal with that and play down a lot of our item cards. So that's why we're playing this. And so this is actually going to be kind of the end of the standard looking supporters. The rest of the support line is going to be really wacky looking, so be prepared. So next up we have 4 Team Flare Grunt. Discard an energy, attach your opponent's active Pokemon. And like I said, this is a disruption deck. We're going to try to take as much energy off our opponent as possible. So we're going to max these guys out. We're also playing one team Skull Grunt. So your opponent reveals their hand and reveals 2 energy cards. Discards 2 energy cards from their hand. So, just an alternate way of discarding energy if our opponent doesn't have any currently on the field. Next up, 3 Delinquent. Discard any stadium in play, and then your opponent discards 3 cards from their hand. One of the best disruption cards that we have in the game. There's pretty much always going to be a stadium in play, and a well-timed Delinquent can really be good for you. Maybe put your opponent at 0 cards in hand, and then after that we can deck them out or like keep taking off their energies. So Delinquent is a very, very good card. And the last of the supports is going to be 2 Team Rocket's Handiwork. Flip 2 coins for each heads. Discard 2 cards from your opponent's deck. So on average, we're going to be discarding 2 cards from our opponent's deck. And that's what we were trying to do. We're actually trying to deck out our opponent. Kind of the goal of the deck is to kind of wear down your opponent with all these annoying cards like Team Grunt and Delinquent. And then towards the end of the game, we can just finish decking them out with our Team Rocket's Handiworks. So next up we have 4 versus Seeker, just to reuse all those different supporters we just mentioned. Going on to the item cards, 4 Max Potion. Heal all damage from one of your Pokemon and discard all of their energy when you do it. Like I said, most of the time we're just going to be using Magical Ribbon for 1 Fairy Energy. And so our most Pokemon, I should say most, not all, but most Pokemon are going to 2-shot this Sylveon. And if they do, we can just Max Potion all of the damage off, attach a Fairy Energy, and use Magical Ribbon again, and keep trying to annoy our opponent to death. So that's kind of the idea with this one. And it wouldn't be a disruption deck if we didn't play 4 Crushing Hammer. So it's everyone's favorite, or least favorite, depending on which side of the board you're on. But you flip a coin, if heads, discard one of your opponent's energy cards. So like I said, it's our go-to favorite disruption card in the deck. We're going to try to take off all of our opponent's energy, or as much of it as possible, until they deck out. 2 Enhanced Hammer. You don't have to flip a coin, but you do discard only special energies with this one. But a lot of decks do play special energies, so like double Dragon energies and double Colorless energies, so we can just instantly take those off. And moving on, we have 1 Field Blower. It's a new card from Guardians Rising. You get to discard up to 2 stadiums or tool cards in play. So this can be very annoying. If we do Lysandre up something that has a float stone, we can use Field Blower to get rid of it. That way they can't retreat. Maybe get rid of their choice bands and all of their different ways they can, do damage to our Sylveons. So just a good disruption card. It's going to be where things get a little weird. We're playing 1 Lucky Helmet. So whenever, it's a tool card, and whenever the opponent, sorry guys, I'm getting tongue-tied. It's a tool card, and the Pokemon it's attached to, whenever your opponent damages it, you get to draw 2 cards. So this is really good because most turns we are going to want to just use Flare Grunt or Delinquent or Team Rocket's Handiwork. We really don't want to end if possible. End is good, to draw cards, but like I said, we really would prefer to be using these disruption cards. So if we get our Lucky Helmet down on our Sylveon, we can kind of supplement our draw power that we're not getting from playing these disruption cards. And it's great because even though we're playing 1, we can just immediately search it out with Magical Ribbon. And we play puzzles, which we'll get to in a second, so we can always get this back if it gets discarded. So next up, 1 Rotem Deck. So basically, shuffle your prize cards into your deck and replace them with 6 others off the top of your deck. So this is good because if we search through our deck and we see we have maybe the rest of our Sylveons prized, or maybe a couple of our key cards, we can play this and basically redo our prizes. And since we're not going to be taking prizes, it allows us to kind of fish what we want out of them and ensure that we have what we need in order to finish a game. Next up, 4 Puzzles of Time. This is going to be a very crucial card in this deck. So it's a really unique card. It has 2 abilities. So if you play 1 Puzzle of Time, you get to look at the top 3 cards of your deck and put them back in any order. So that's kind of neat, I guess, if we're dead drawing. But really, we want to use it for its second effect. If you play 2 puzzles at the same time, you get to get 2 cards from your discard pile back into your hand. So this is great because we can grab like a Max Potion and a Crushing Hammer, or if our opponent discards our Lucky Helmet with their own Field Blower, we can get it back out of there. We can get back Sylveons if they get knocked out. So this is a great card just to reuse all of the different cards in this deck. Okay, so next up we're playing 2 Parallel City. So it's another one of these dual effect cards. So whichever way the blue side is facing, that player can only have 3 bench Pokemon, and whichever player has the red side facing them, their Grass, Fire, and Water Pokemon do 20 less damage. So both of these are potentially disruptive, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to annoy our opponent and disrupt them. Seems like a great stadium for that. And we're also playing 2 Cylon Lab as well. Each player's basic Pokemon have no abilities. But you might be thinking, well, why would you play this? Because your EVs have Energy Evolution. Why would you want to shut that off? Well, after the first turn, after you get your first Sylveon set up, you really aren't too reliant on Energy Evolution. Yes, it's still good, but you know, we have that one Sylveon that we can tank with for a while, and we can always just search out another Sylveon with the Magical Ribbon instead of using Energy Evolution if we need to. So sometimes the disruption that we gain from our opponent or on our opponent is worth cutting off our own EV's abilities. So that's going to be it for the trainer cards. Next up, we're playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 Fairy Energy, and then 2 Double Colorless Energy. So it seems like a lot of energy for a deck that is really only reliant on a 1 energy attacker, and that's really because we are playing very little draw cards in this deck, so we really want to make sure that we have access to our energies when we need them, because we're not playing Sycamores, you know, we're very rarely playing N, so we really just want to make sure that we always are going to open with a Fairy Energy to use Energy Evolution. But we're also playing 2 Double Colorless just to be able to make use of PRC-GX or maybe Fairy Wind for some reason if we absolutely had to. So yeah, we definitely want to be able to attach just a Double Colorless instead of having to attach 3 Fairy Energies. So it's great because if we want to do like a cool PRC-GX play, we can use Magical Ribbon, grab a Lysandre, a DCE, and something else, and then next turn we can use Lysandre to bring up something our opponent doesn't want stuck in the active spot, attach Double Colorless, and use PRC-GX to return their attackers back to their hand. But yeah, guys, that is going to be our attempt at a Sylveon GX deck. Like I said, too, if you want to see how this deck looks in action, we did record a video with it, so check that out when you get a chance. But definitely a very, very fun deck. It kind of reminds me of a hybrid between Houndoom and Lapras, Quad Lapras. Kind of has a feel like a hybrid between both of those, but definitely a very fun deck. And I think it really shows off how good Sylveon is as a defensive card. I do think it's worth noting, I think Sylveon has potential as an offensive card as well. Maybe we can do a deck based around attacking with this guy in the future, but this is going to be more of a defensive disruption-based deck. But yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed this look at this Sylveon GX deck. As usual with these early deck profiles that we do, they're kind of usually rough drafts that we use to start testing with, so there might be some things in here we can tweak or change. So as usual too, let us know below in the comments what you think, if there's anything you guys would want to change or see, or maybe some stuff that you like in the deck. Let us know. We love hearing your feedback. But definitely stay tuned and keep your eyes out on the channel. We have a ton of Guardians Rising content coming. But as usual, feel free to like and subscribe. And don't forget to check out our merchandise over at rarecandytcg.com. If you can pick up something, help support the channel, it'd mean a lot to us. But with that, I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you for the next one.